So let's just jump right in. If you've ever tried to build a game in Python, something more than just a quick prototype, you've probably felt it. That moment where your project just stops. It stops scaling. Today, we're talking about that invisible wall, and you know what? We're gonna smash right through it.
Okay, so picture this. A while back, I get this huge idea. I'm gonna build a full-blown evolution simulator in Pygame. You know, this big multi-agent world, little creatures hunting, eating, reproducing, evolving over generations. Sounds simple enough, right? Yeah, famous last words. It worked. At first. With 10 creatures, it was fine. Once I hit 50, you could feel it start to lag. By the time I got to 200 creatures, the frame rate just completely died. Collisions were failing all over the place, and trying to add a simple new behavior, like thirst, felt like performing open-heart surgery on the whole codebase. I had slammed right into that invisible wall.
And it turns out I wasn't alone. This is a super common experience. This quote just nails it perfectly. As your game gets bigger, the problems don't just add up, they multiply, like exponentially. That elegant player class you started with becomes this tangled, unmanageable mess of dependencies. And here's the thing, it's not really a coding problem. It's an architectural one. All right, so let's get into our first big solution for this architectural nightmare. It's a total paradigm shift, and it's called the Entity Component System, or ECS. The whole idea is to stop thinking in rigid objects and start thinking in flexible, little Lego-like pieces. Now this is where it gets really interesting. On the left, you've got your traditional object-oriented approach. You might have a creature-based class, and then herbivore and carnivore inherit from that. Seems logical, right? But what if you want a carnivore that can also swim, or a flying herbivore? You end up with this messy, super fragile structure. Now, ECS, over on the right, just throws all that out. Instead of saying an object is a thing, you say it has things. It has a position component, it has a velocity component, and maybe it has a predator component. It's all about composition. So let's break down what those three parts actually are. First, an entity. It's really just a number, a unique ID. That's it. No data, no logic. Think of it like a tracking number for your game objects. Then you have a component. This is just a bag of data. It holds info like health or position, but it has zero logic inside. And finally, you have the system. This is where all the logic lives. A movement system, for example, will grab every single entity that has both a position and a velocity component and then update their positions. That's its only job. See? The data and the logic are kept completely separate. So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds cool in theory, but how do I actually do it? Well, with a Python library like Esper, it's actually pretty simple. First, you just ask the world to create an entity, world.create_entity, and it gives you back an ID. Then you just start sticking components on it. You use add component for position, add component for velocity. Then, inside your main game loop, your movement system just asks the world, hey, give me all the entities with position and velocity. And then world.process runs all your systems. It's so clean, totally decoupled, and way faster. So we've untangled our code with ECS, which is awesome. But what about that catastrophic performance degradation? When you have hundreds or even thousands of creatures running around, how do you handle things like collisions or proximity checks without the game just grinding to a complete halt? Yeah, this is the big one. This is the fundamental performance question you have to answer. If you have 500 creatures, the brute force way is to loop through all 500, and for each one, you loop through the other 499 to check for collisions. That's an O of n squared operation, and trust me, it's a total recipe for disaster. There has to be a smarter way to do this. And here it is. The solution is something called spatial partitioning. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. Just chop up your game world into a bunch of smaller regions. That way, instead of checking an object against literally everything else in the entire world, you only have to check it against the things in its own little local neighborhood. It takes that O of n squared nightmare and brings it down to something way, way more manageable. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. A fixed grid is the simplest. Just imagine laying a piece of graph paper over your game world. It's super easy to set up. But what if all your creatures clump together in just one or two of those grid cells? Well, you're pretty much back to square one. A quad tree, on the other hand, is much more clever. It's a data structure that actually adapts to the density of your objects, which is perfect for a simulation where creatures might all gather around, say, a food source. Okay, let's actually visualize this so it makes sense. Imagine your entire game world is just one big box. We'll call this a node. This is the root of our quad tree. And right now, every single object in our game is inside it. Now we set a rule.
We say, hey, a node can only hold 4 objects. The second a 5th object enters this big box, a rule triggers. The box says, I'm too crowded, and it splits itself perfectly into 4 smaller quadrants: northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. Then it moves the objects into whichever new smaller box they belong to.
And here's the absolute magic of it. This whole process just repeats for each of the new quadrants. So if that northeast quadrant gets more than 4 objects, it then splits itself into 4 even smaller quadrants. Meanwhile, if that southwest quadrant is empty, it just stays as it is. The tree only grows deeper where the action is happening, which saves you a massive amount of processing power.
Okay, so our code is clean, our performance is solid, awesome. But a game isn't just about logic, right? It's about creating a world that feels alive, that looks good. So let's talk about adding that visual polish, but doing it in a way that doesn't just destroy all the performance gains we just made.
First up, a classic but super important optimization: sprite sheets. Instead of having a separate image file for your character walking left, walking right, jumping, you get the idea, you put all those animation frames into a single image file. Why? Because loading one big file from your disk is so much faster than loading dozens and dozens of tiny little files. It's a simple change, but it makes a huge difference for load times and memory.
Now for something that is just so cool. Look at this. On the right, you've got a normal 2D sprite with a light shining on it. The light just makes a flat circle. But look at the one on the left. The light actually seems to understand the shape of the gem. It catches the edges, it creates highlights and shadows. This is not a 3D model. This is the power of something called a normal map.
So what is a normal map? It kind of looks like a psychedelic rainbow version of your sprite, but it's really a data texture. The red, green, and blue colors in this image, they don't represent color at all. They represent direction. They're basically telling the game engine which way each individual pixel on your 2D sprite is facing in 3D space. This allows it to calculate really realistic lighting and create this amazing illusion of depth.
And here's the wild part. You can even make these by hand. You start with a reference sphere that basically acts as your color palette, showing you which color corresponds to which direction. Then you just look at your sprite, imagine its 3D surface, and you paint it with the colors from that sphere. A surface angled up and to the right, you paint it with that greenish color. A surface facing straight at you, you use that bluish color. It definitely takes some practice, but it gives you incredible artistic control over your game's lighting.
Phew, we have covered a lot of ground, from high-level code architecture all the way down to pixel-level lighting tricks. So let's bring it all together. Let's synthesize this into a clear, actionable plan for you to break through your own invisible wall.
Here's your toolkit. Number 1, architect your game's logic with an entity component system. This is what's going to keep your code from becoming that tangled mess as you add more and more features. Number 2, when your number of entities starts to grow, use spatial partitioning, like a quad tree, to keep all those collision and proximity checks lightning fast. And number 3, use efficient techniques like sprite sheets and the absolute magic of normal maps to add that professional visual polish without killing your performance.
So the big takeaway is this. Complexity and performance, they aren't just these random forces that ruin your project. They are engineering challenges, and they have well-defined solutions. The tools are here, and the path is clear. Now, the content of this was AI-generated for reference, but these concepts are just the beginning. It's your turn to take this and run with it. I am so excited to see what you discover and what you build. If you have any topics you want us to tackle next, let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to rate and subscribe for more explainers like this. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.